Today we're talking about failure. A couple of things I want to mention. Number one, I really don't believe we truly understand what going to failure is. Failure, when you're doing push-ups and you're like, and you're like, oh man, that was all I could do. That's not failure. Failure is literally you're going to the point where your muscles just give out. You're completely exhausted, totally spent. You can't possibly do not only another rep, but you probably can't even do another set. If after a minute or so you're like, okay, I'm back at it. No, that's not going to failure. This idea of failure is like you're going along and all of a sudden, and you just nosedive and you hit this breaking wall. Physiologically, that doesn't really so much exist because the muscle fatigues at a gradual pace downwards. Okay, technique starts to erode and so on. So this idea of like failure that they mentioned in combat conditioning, and so we're talking about a very, very high level of fatigue. I've done it like 3 or 4 times in my entire life, and believe me, it sucks. It's really, really, really hard. And when I was done, I was like, there is no way in hell I'm going to willfully do that again. I can work really hard, muscles screaming at me, and I know that's still not failure. So the first lesson is we don't really know or use real failure a whole lot. We can work very hard, but I think it's more here. What we think is failure is more of a mental limitation. People email me all the time, I can only do 10 pull-ups, only do 10 pull-ups, how do I get more? Well, the first step is stop saying you can only do 10 pull-ups. Every time you say that and every time you do that on the bar, you are literally programming your brain to say only do 10 pull-ups. That's your limit. So it's a self-imposed limit. You get 10 and you feel like you're done. You feel like it's failure, but it's not. It's all up here. The other thing to consider too is make sure your breathing is smooth, because your muscles can only work as well as your breathing is. So if you're going to a certain fatigue point and this is as hard as your body is willing to work because you're not exchanging oxygen very well, your muscles are always going to butt up against that limit. So if you can keep breathing and the oxygen exchange keeps going, then your muscles can keep working very, very hard to a much higher level. However, it feels like muscular failure because it's overall systematic fatigue, but it's more due to lack of oxygen rather than actual muscle fatigue, the chemical energy in the actual muscle itself. So just some food for thought on failure. The bottom line is rock on, push on. Your limits are more self-imposed than anything else. It's more mental. Go for it. Put everything you got into your sets, and don't worry too much about going too hard or anything. Be fit, live free.